Hi, my name is Rich, and I'm going to talk to how did I get into channeling, what is channeling, and what it's all about. So, channeling is communicating with infinite intelligence, your higher power, your greater higher self, etc. It's different from, let's say, mediumship or something where in mediumship you're communicating with someone who's died, like mother, father, etc. Channeling, you're getting infinite intelligence. Now, there's some difference. In the US, they say channeling because the person who's they channel is communicating is sort of the conduit for the message. In England, especially, they say trance because the person is in a trance state when they're communicating the message. They are not doing it in a waking state. So you often will see the person with their eyes closed and speaking. And if you see a video and you'd be like, why is this person in the video with their eyes closed? Now you know they're in a trance state and they're channeling, and the terms can be really used interchangeably. So, and what is trance? So in our day-to-day lives, when we are awake, there's beta brain waves and alpha brain waves, and that's the sort of active brain waves. Beta is when you're really active and awake and aware, but when you go to sleep, you go to theta brain waves, and then deep sleep is like delta brain waves. That's your deep restorative sleep. So the person, the channel, or the person doing in the trance state is in that theta state. They're just sort of a light sleep. So it often takes them a minute or two to get into that state. So you might say, who does this? So there was a very famous woman, Jane Roberts, in the 1970s, and she published the Seth tapes, and that sort of raised some awareness about it. There have been several people over the decades who've done this. One of the most famous is Esther Hicks. Jerry Hicks and his now wife Esther Hicks would channel an entity called Abraham. She's been, public with recordings and books and videos since the 90s. They've recorded thousands and thousands of hours. There's zillions of YouTube videos. She sells out cruise ships in theaters all the time. And she is still, her husband has since passed, but she still channels. And more recently, there's a guy, Daryl Anka, who channels an entity called Bashar. And he's been channeling publicly, I think, since the O's. And he and some of these other, about 6 entities that were channels that were featured in a documentary called Tuning In 2008 that highlighted 6 channels and what is channeling, and they talk about the messages, etc. that you get. So I want to say, well, how did I get into this? And I'm really big into personal development, and I was taking a course in personal development, and the guy who taught the course, at one point, his now then girlfriend, now wife, he would ask questions, and she would go into a trance state, and they would channel, and there would be a lot of back and forth. And I know myself and several other people in the class would go and repeatedly play back those videos, and they go, wow, those were so profound. And I felt like he was getting half his material from his girlfriend, and she was great and super cool. But what really got me was she said, well, anyone can learn to channel. And that, I was like, excuse me? I didn't know. I kind of thought that channeling was only reserved for certain people who grew up in woo-woo households and had never done this before. I was also delusional. I probably thought I could learn this in a couple weeks. I'm very focused. I'll read whatever I need to do. I'll practice and do as much work as I need to do to learn anything. And in this case, it took me years. And I think if I knew how long it would take to learn how to channel, I probably wouldn't have done it. But I read, I don't know how many books on the topic. I took several online classes, some better than others. I went to a school called Arthur Findlay College in the UK and did a week-long, it's like a boot camp, from 8 a.m. till 9 p.m. You're in and out of trance all day. I mean, obviously break for meals, and that's about it. And that was, very profound. There are schools in the U.S. as well that teach this. But there's a couple different types of trance. So there's trance speaking, which is where the person speaks to you. Often you'll hear it's a one-way dialogue. They go into the trance state, they speak to you. Some do a back and forth. Esther Hicks with Abraham, Bashar does this with, Daryl Anka does this with Bashar, where they go back, he goes into a trance state, and they start asking questions. And the answers are very instantaneous, and they're very sharp, and they're very on point. There's a second type of trance called trance healing, where they go into a trance state and they do healing energy. And the third, which is kind of I don't say it's newer, but it's not as many people know how to do this well, called trance communication, which is sort of like mediumship on steroids. So if you hear of a medium, they'll say, I'm being shown a symbol. Does this mean anything to you? So there's a bit of a translation going on. In trance communication, it's like you're speaking to your dead grandmother or ex-husband or ex-wife or whatever, and the communication's live. I think that will ultimately overtake what is currently done as mediumship, because people, like, if I can have a direct dialogue with someone who's crossed and get that closure, I don't know if I really want the charades game as much anymore. It doesn't resonate. It's not as deep, but there's very few people who can do that. And there's 3 levels. There's psychic, which is reading energy on the person across from you; mediumship, which is connecting with someone who's crossed over and passed; and channeling or trance, which is in a trance state and communicating from your higher power, your source energy, whatever term you wish to use. Now, how do I use it? So when I sit down with someone, a lot of time, and we'll discuss kind of what they want to cover, what they want to get over, and I'll initially start out with sort of what we call a psychic assessment. I'll kind of, this is what I'm picking up, this is what I'm feeling, and there's a lot of back and forth. Hey, I pick up these 3 things. Does that resonate with you? And we'll have a dialogue about that. And usually it does, and then I'll drop into a trance state. It'll go back and forth, and now it'll take me about a minute or 2 to go into the state. I'll speak for several minutes. Could be 3 minutes, could be 5 minutes, could be 10 minutes. You never really know. And then at the end, I'll come out and I'll say, did that make sense to you? Did that resonate with you? And 9.9 times out of 10, it totally does. And that's the very strange part for the person who's doing the channeling, who's in the trance state, because they're saying things. They don't really know what they're saying, and they don't know till the end, until you get that feedback from the person at the end. And I said a bunch of things to you. It wasn't my words. They came out. Did they make sense? And I often don't even remember everything that's said. It's very vague to me. It's kind of foggy. And, the 9 times out of 10, the person would be like, that's exactly what I needed to hear. My friend Sam was like, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it, because that was amazing. And that is a typical response from someone. And a lot of times, if you're looking for some point in your life, where do I go? How do I deal with a certain issue? What do I want to do? I think going to see someone who's an expert in channeling or trance, depending on where you are, might be a very profound investment in yourself and in your time. But I find it fascinating. I love it. The messages are so deep and profound, and something that you're not going to get anywhere else, in my opinion. But if you'd like to book a session with me, go to richmizak.com, and look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much. Bye.